As I begin, I have a question to ask and an admission to make. My first question, and you can do a show of hands, how many of you are either thinking of or familiar with or do something around consumerizing or personalizing reward or total rewards in your company? Can I have a show of hands? Okay, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Interesting. Probably I'll reach out to you either during the Q&A or we have a small case study in between. You can jump in and contribute. The admission that I have to make is neither I am from a different planet nor I have undergone a mutation. So there's no component of a superhero either in me or in the rewards team at Vodafone. I think there are things that we're trying to experiment with and try. And I think I'll reach out to you during the case study when you can also contribute the stuff that you're doing in your companies or you would want us to do on this subject. And I think then at the end, we could look at kind of a superheroes toolkit once we finish the session. So this is a pic from Wikipedia. And the interesting part is about reorienting your approach from looking at what the organization wants to offer to what your consumer wants to consume. And throughout the earlier sessions, you heard about individualization and moving from pricing to proposition. So that's what the topic is all about. So the world around us is changing, and you heard the Mercer team talk about this as well. Regulations are either surprising or changing every day. So is technology, and that's driving social norms. Demographics, you have more millennials in the workforce, you have more women in the workforce, and you have a certain component of an aging population in your workforce. And all these four aspects brings in a certain kind of dynamics that you need to manage from an HR and rewards perspective. So let's look at what's the four major shifts. And these four major shifts are not just from an HR or rewards perspective, these shifts are from an overall consumer and market perspective. And I actually stolen this slide from my marketing colleagues or counterparts. So what's really happening? There's a growing middle class who have a certain kind of disposable income in their hands. They're well-traveled. A lot of them have either worked abroad or travel abroad for leisure. Simultaneously, there's a rise of the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Most of us, our companies, especially companies which are either retail or largely distributed, are now hiring from tier 2 or tier 3 cities. And when you do that, you're trying to address a certain kind of aspiration and a certain kind of consumer demand. Demographics I spoke about, so I wouldn't repeat that. People are getting more digitally enabled. Pay, for example, is often visible more transparently on places like paycheck.in or Glassdoor. So are other company practices very, very visible, accessible. People are able to talk about their company's reward and benefit programs on social media. So things are becoming more digitized, things are becoming more enabled and transparent. The last is about how's the buyer ideology changing? And as the consumer ideology changes, is your organization's approach either to selling products outside the company or selling products inside changing? So who's consuming? Where are they consuming? What do they want to consume? And how and what time and period is becoming very, very critical. So those are four major shifts that we as a company see from a marketing standpoint for our external consumers as well as for our internal consumers who are our employees. And that's really impacting the way that we look at HR. Today, most of us sell careers and not just jobs. We sell a certain kind of vision, a certain kind of career steps, certain set of future jobs that a person would be able to do if they join a company. So you're actually trying to not sell a job that your company has, you're trying to understand the new hires or the candidates' aspirations and then trying to offer careers. So there's a certain kind of consumerization happening as you do new hires or as you do recruiting. Yesterday, we were at the Google office in Gurgaon on a study tour, and we really saw the kind of stuff they're doing around workplace and workspace. and how they're trying to customize benefits and employee engagement from a consumer point of view. And you would have probably all read about Google and the kind of fantastic workplace and workspace initiatives that they have to address to different kind of needs of their workforce. So there's a lot of consumerization happening in that space as well. In the learning space, most of you probably use gamification. There are a lot of companies now who are going for SPOCs. What are SPOCs? SPOCs are basically small private online courses, and those are getting inspired by the massive online open courses that you see in the marketplace. So organizations are not trying to give you run-of-the-mill, fit-all size e-learning programs, but they're trying to create a set of things that their employees can customize for themselves on portals or learn through a process of gamification. So there's a huge amount of customization or consumerization happening in the learning space as well. And that all is leading to an overall consumerization of rewards, sorry, of HR. But the question is, what's happening in rewards? Do we see a similar pattern? What real-life practical initiatives are organizations taking there to consumerize rewards from an employee or a user point of view? I will open up for a case study now, and you can kind of jot down thoughts in each of your tables, and I will probably ask for volunteers, or if you don't volunteer, I'll probably pick up somebody and ask you to talk for about 2 to 3 minutes. So here's the rule of the case study. So this is a master class, so in a class, we'll need to have the audience participate as well. So that's the rule of the game. You'll have 10 minutes, 4 minutes to reflect on each of your tables or individually. Some of you might want to talk about your company's practice and not necessarily what the roundtable thinks of. And then I'll probably request 2 or 3 of you to talk for 2 minutes and give a quick elevator speech on what do you think rewards professionals should do about consumerizing or personalizing rewards and benefits in your respective organizations, if you've already done, or if you have any suggestion. So here's the case. This is a live case, and this is about a certain company, and I'm sharing certain statistics out there. So this is a company operating in a highly competitive market. You have a new player who's just come in. This company has huge investments in terms of both CapEx and of course OpEx to materialize the investments in capital expenditure. Sudden spurt in attrition in this company, let's call it company A. About 70% of the hires that this company makes are millennials. There's been an overall 10% increase in the gender balance in this particular company. About 5% of the employees are more than 45 years of age. Operating in a highly digitized, connected world, and a company ideology that talks about being agile, being responsive to external consumer needs, so a customer-first strategy, believes in health and safety, and a culture of diversity and inclusivity. So that's the case for you. I'll clam up and wait for you to reflect for the next 4 minutes. I'll ask the People Matters team to kind of track time. You can huddle up in your tables, or you can talk individually as well. So I'll like you to elect your spokesperson from the table. Anybody who wants to speak up solo could go solo as well. I have colleagues from Vodafone here as well, but maybe I'll take non-Vodafone speakers first, and we could have the Vodafone guys speaking maybe during the Q&A or towards the end.
Looking at the scenario where larger population is millennials, they require instant recognition, cash component, etc. And so we need to restructure our reframe or our total rewards philosophy. And how will we? So first thing, as you mentioned, like for whom we are going to do it. So millennials, larger population. How and what we are going to do is, so what we are going to do is we will change our rewards philosophy in 4 parameters like compensation. We'll focus more on cash component and short-term incentive than long-term incentive, because long-term they may not value that much. As far as benefits are concerned, because they are millennial, they may not again value the retirements, etc. values. So we have to customize those values. So customize benefits through, and this company is already good at digitization technology. So I think it won't be very challenging to implement those customized and different wellness program. Again, this group value L&D. I mean, they require careers. Top two requirement for them would be careers and cash. So for careers, again, we have to customize learning, like you mentioned, gamification, etc. And again, because of technology strength, it won't be an issue. And third thing is like your intangible rewards. So again, given all other things, intangible rewards are equally important, like your workspace, how innovative it is, because innovation may be required, like retention. The key critical two challenges are retention and attraction because of competitiveness in the market. And again, attrition rate is already high. So we have to give the integrated solution, not the silo solution, on 4 parts: holistic, comprehensive, integrated, customized solution, as we mentioned.
Okay, fantastic. So you spoke about a more holistic approach, and you spoke about carriers and cash. So that's my takeaway.
Hi, my name is Shirish. I'm from Stan Chart Bank. Me and my colleagues thought on the same lines. Some of the things to add is that the population is a mix, gender ratio going up. So some specific women, supporting initiatives, and a lot of these people could be coming from outside the city. So things which become important for them is stay. Where do they stay? Is there any housing, temporary accommodations which can be attained? Cash in hand, very important for this type of population. We also thought about things like work from home, technology-enabled work from home. I think that's something which can be easily attained by this organization. Something to do with also stay in office. If people are going to be in office and they can arrange for getting their, things like even getting some of the groceries, partnering in some of the, some of the stores where they can provide food and all those stuff. Because again, living, staying, and attrition is something which is people really value these benefits. I think that's something which we can work with the facilities. Also on training, again, enabling the technology, and also on something to do with wellness. We also have a workforce which is 45 years and above. So I think retaining some of your key benefits which are beneficial for a higher age group is important, whilst you may want to diversify by inclusion of some other benefits which are more to do with things like even younger workforce stress management. You may want to induct something to really make sure that this population is a productive workforce. So I think it has to be a diversified type of a product mix. But yes, I think technology is a great enabler, and definitely can be leveraged in a lot of scenarios. I think we should definitely, this organization should be leveraging it across the board for everyone.
Good to see you use the word product mix. That's a nice word. Interesting observations on bringing stuff which is woman-centric, trying to give housing. You picked up that part that people are coming from other cities probably, and support in other household kind of stuff while they work in office. Okay. Anybody who has done something in his or her organization wants to share an experience? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lipika Verma, and I represent Schneider Electric. So in terms of looking at this solution, of course, very similar to the interventions which my other colleagues talked about, we need to look at it holistically in terms of how do we structure the compensation part of it. And I think looking at the millennials, they need a lot of flexible ways of comp, and how do we balance it in terms of the compensation structure, because they don't like a lot of long-term incentives and things like that. So a lot of emphasis on, short-term things coming to them. At the same time, looking at the design of benefits along with them. So to the extent that it needs to be done through focus group discussions or through a crowdsourcing methodology in terms of what is it that we are using in terms of the design for the benefit programs. So that is something which is very, very important. And then probably putting a lot of emphasis in terms of total reward statements for them and customizing it for each and every individual. So TRS gets very effective because that gives them the full sense of what is it that they are getting, what are the other areas which they could leverage upon, and also the fact that it's a technology organization. I think everyone needs it at a click of a button. So, how do you automate whatever benefits programs that you are, really giving to the employees? So those are areas that we thought will be very, very beneficial. And then looking at the strategic importance of diversity, and since there's a gender balance that's getting promoted, how do you make the workplace very, very flexible from a work-life standpoint? How do we provide flexibility? Is there an option of part-time work that can be given to female population or even to male population? And how do we really use these facilities to really make it the best place to work? So that would be our reward strategy that we thought about as a team. And some of these interventions definitely we have taken up in our organization as well.
Thank you. Lipika, I heard you speak about crowdsourcing, heard you speak about total reward statement, how do you design an overall proposition, especially for the women folk, how do you bring in more workplace flexibility, specifically in terms of work timings. So thank you. What I'm doing right now is also trying to crowdsource ideas for my company as we do this exercise. The last one, and then we kind of get back on the stage.
Hi, my name is Priyanka and I come from a company called Grey Orange. Just another thing that I wanted to add to what the three colleagues have mentioned is publicly recognizing people for things like customer service and agility. So this might not take a lot of money, but in your company town halls or quarterly meetings that managers have, when you recognize people that have done something beyond their job for a customer success or focus, for example, will take care of the ideology that you mentioned. It seems to be a company that has core values and it really regards them. So if somebody, let's say, does something really fast to show the speed of decision making in the company as an agile organization, again, publicly recognizing and appreciating the person is also something that we would do intangibly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Priyanka. So we'll kind of close with that and we'll pick up again as we do the Q&A. So quite a bit of interesting things around careers, cash and short term for the millennials, women-centric policies, flexibility, crowdsourcing ideas, how do you provide housing, and is that really possible to provide? How do you provide kind of household help while people are working in the office? How do you publicly recognize some of the values that you stand for outside in the market? Very interesting stuff. And how do you kind of package that entire thing into a total reward statement? We will kind of go on to the Vodafone case study now. And the stats that I spoke about was fundamentally everything about Vodafone, the ideology, the stats that I showed, the kind of industry that we operate in was really Vodafone. And my idea was to source some ideas from all of you for the company and also try to kind of cross-check and see if what we're trying to do is good enough, is it there, and how much more do we have to do. So as some of you very rightly said, because our core philosophy starts and ends with the consumer, we do a lot of research internally, not only through very traditional people surveys, but also through a lot of focus group discussions, which are segmented in that sense. And we try and meet different genres and categories of employees and try to source from them what do they really feel about our policies and what do they really want at the workplace. So we take a very, very segmented approach to both rewards and benefits. And when I say rewards and benefits, it's not that it's cash, it's facilities, it's the way we recognize and engage, it's about a broader perspective of HR policies in that sense. What you see below is the kind of data or analytics that we use. On the on your left hand side is more structured and mathematical data that we really pull out from the way people use our policies and products. So for example, if there's a car policy, how many people do actually use it? And what sort of choices do they make if they go for a car policy? Or if there's a certain kind of a leave policy, how many people are using them? After using them, how many of them kind of come back to the workforce? For example, if there's a maternity leave policy, how many people use it and then come back into the workforce? So are we enabling people to use it and return back? We do a lot of analytics around demographics. We do a lot of predictive analytics on attrition, and we fundamentally use our customer value tools from the marketing team to do this predictive analytics or the initial stages of big data in that sense. And we try to model on the existing data of attrition and try to see where is the next attrition about to happen. In what sort of categories, in what kind of comp ratios, which functions, what kind of age brackets, what kind of increment people would have got in the last time, how do you correlate it to attrition? So there's a lot of predictive data that we use both from a past analysis and also from a future churn predictiveness perspective. The other kind of data, which is about perceptions and beliefs and about life stage and lifestyle problems, is what we get, as Priyanka spoke about, from focus group discussions, from our employee surveys, from town halls, and from various emails and chats that we get from our employees. So that's just to give you a flavor of the kind of database decisions that we take when we do this kind of segmentation. And this is what kind of emerges. Right now, we have kind of categorized people into 3 different segments. One is about the criticality of the roles and skills. A lot of you would probably call them hot skills or premium skills in that sense. The next kind of categorization is around life stage. So are you a first-time parent? Are you a graduate? Do you come from what kind of city, socioeconomic status, etc. The third is more around gender balance, millennials, that kind of stuff. What you see at the middle is the initiatives that we have taken till now, and I'll kind of very quickly deep dive into a few of them. I think broadly what it's helping us to do is evolve a larger deal or an employer value proposition, which is not one size fits all, but is very, very segmented and customized. And what we say is we are moving away from price to proposition. That's what we are doing with our consumer base. We're not trying to play a price game, but trying to give a proposition to our consumers. We're similarly trying to say that it's not only a cash game. And you saw different speakers come and say how kind of increments have remained flat at 10%. Most of you said you want to drop it by 0.5, etc. Huge amount of budgetary pressures on OPEX, which you saw in the case study. So we are saying you can't simply win on cash, because at the end of the day, you have that much limited cash to play with. How do you move from cash or price to proposition, and how do you build a more holistic deal? So that's been the journey at Vodafone. Here's a quick look on what we do on cash in that sense. And because you have a small kitty to play with, you have a 10% wage bill increase, for example, how do you distribute it more optimally? The days of giving a 7% increase to everybody and the top performer probably gets 8 and the low performer gets 6 are gone, because those are more socialist ways of looking at it, and that doesn't give you the right return on the investment. Because the guy who gets your 8% increase is unhappy, and so is the guy who gets a 6% increase. So you kind of spread or build a kind of parity of unhappiness, as I call it in that sense, by not differentiating. So there are a few things that we look at. We look at how our different work levels are positioned in the market. So how competitive is our executive pay, our middle level pay, how is our frontline pay doing? And there will be different years when we will take a strategy of investing at particular work levels where we see we are lagging behind or we are not as competitive in the market. The next is kind of a Venn diagram or an intersection of high attriting skills or high attriting functions with functions which are getting paid premium in the market. And we see a very, very strong correlation there. So that's a fantastic segment to invest in. High attriting, and market says they're paying premium for those kind of skills. That could be different in your context. For somebody, it could be certain retail skill sets. So for example, I was speaking to somebody in the retail industry and they said that Meat cutters and fish slicers is a premium skill in retail. And people who can handle cold food and storage is a premium skill set. For somebody, it's about cloud computing and big data analytics. For somebody like us, it could be marketing based on segmentation or marketing based on big data, which are hot skills. For IT industry, it's going to be very, very different. So how do you look at that? And then there are business critical roles. For example, if you could be going for an IPO and your investment relations role could become suddenly very critical. Or you're trying to roll out distribution and your head of distribution could be a very, very critical role. So that's what we look at. And then of course, pay is of course very individual. So you look at the person's performance and potential for sure. And of course, you look at that person's compa ratio of how he is placed vis-a-vis the market, which typically in rewards we call the compa ratio. So that's what we do on cash. We also realize that a fixed compensation structure is not really working for us. What we did this year is we have moved to a flexible plan. People came back and said that why are you restricting me to the kind of house rent I could take, the kind of car I could purchase, the amount that I could pay to my driver, and the amount that I build for my retirals or my future. Allow me that flexibility to choose, and hence allow me within the tax rules to save the maximum amount of money. And as we structured this in the reward stream in India, we really realized that for the same cash, you can deliver more purchasing power. Because at the end of the day, you're delivering more take home. And we moved away from our very multinational way of looking at it and saying there's only base, there's only HRA, and then you have your short term. And we said that we will play between the allowances and let the person, for example, I can give you a Bombay example. Somebody who stays in Worli and stays close to her office may not want a house, but may want to buy a larger car because he has enough disposable income to play with it. So that's what we have introduced, and we have said our employees can go and buy the aspirational car of their choice. What we are now offering is really market leading lease options where people can choose not just the value of the car, the tenure of lease from 3, 4 to 5 year periods. They can choose a driver, full reimbursement. They can choose the kind of residual value that they want to choose for. They want to choose between a dry lease and a wet lease. You could choose between that. NPS is the other piece that we have introduced to build long-term future wealth for our employees, specifically people who are on the 35, 40 plus side. The other thing that we have done, and I think Priyanka again spoke about building workplace flexibility. We have, and all of these we have done based on specific needs that have come in for our employees. So it may or may not work for your organization, but 3 very interesting options around a break flex, which is about sabbatical, so which is longer terms from 6 months to 18 months, about a compressed work week or a week flex, so you work for a shorter week. And the third is about time flex or part-time, when you work for a shorter time during the day. And all these you could do while remaining an employee of Vodafone. So these are 3 options that we have built in. The posters or the marketing material that you see is all developed through internal comms and our brand teams. Health and safety is also core value, and we used to have a company administered medical insurance plan. We have 2 years back we moved to a insurance policy provider managed plan. And what that has helped us do is really bring down costs both on claims and on administrative costs as well. And it has helped the employee realize more value out of it. Because it's an insurance policy, their realization is anywhere between 90 to 100%. Earlier, the realization because of tax, especially on things like domiciliary expenses, were about 53 rupees on a 100 rupee claim that they would make. So same or lesser money for Vodafone, more realization for the employee. And all of these were again, as somebody was saying, I think from Cognizant, that 3 years data analytics was done on the kind of expenses, claims, diseases people have, and we developed a customized medical insurance policy based on that. So we make about a 30 crore investment annually, and we cover 40,000 lives. It's 40,000 because employees, their parents, children and spouse are covered. And we just don't cover hospitalization, we cover day-to-day medical expenses as well. And we have some very outstanding emergency coverages for things like maternity, cancer. We even try and cover things like autism. Again, somebody spoke about a total reward statement, and that's a glimpse of what we have done. A very, very personalized, individual total reward statement for, yes, I've got the signal, I just close my last slide and then maybe a quick Q&A. Everybody, all 13,500 employees get this letter customized from them. It's about their cash, short term, for people who have a long-term policy, their long-term policy, and everything else from if there's club, healthcare, telephone plans, everything will be completely mentioned and monetized. This has really, really helped because somebody who on a pure CTC basis was on 80 lakhs suddenly sees that his total rewards is about 1.2 CR. When he goes to either negotiate with a new company or when he applies for, let's say, another Vodafone company, and recently one of my colleagues applied to Vodafone UK and they made him an offer. They said, no, in Vodafone India, these are the things they get. Either you give me these benefits or help me monetize these benefits in your offer. So this has really helped our employees in terms of understanding what they really get and the value of it. And this, in a lot of ways, takes away the pain of inducting people on policies, telling them what they get. When they get their annual increase letter, they get the total reward statement, they get everything they know, get to know of all the policies. The last one, and this is kind of my favorite, I see the space of consumerization going further down, and you would have more micro segments. Right now we are looking at more larger chunks. This will go more micro and more individualized. And hence you would need more digital platforms where people out of the basket of things will choose their own benefits and the amount of cash and incentives that they want. This is futuristic, but I think that's the way things are coming. Employers will also bring in more bargaining power, but it will be the employees who will choose what they want. Employees are also asking that they want to exchange their benefits, and there are companies who do that. They say, I don't need these leaves, can I donate it to Priyanka, who needs a bit of leave for herself. So employees will want to exchange leaves. Healthcare, as I see, as you've seen in the US with Obamacare and all that, will probably move to being government sponsored. You will have more contingent workers because people may not want to tie themselves up into an appointment letter or a permanent employment with a company, and you will have more part-time workers, freelancers, etc. Pay will become more transparent because everything is going online, digital. Line managers are now empowered to take reward decisions, so they know everybody's salaries and so on and so forth. So you will find a lot of equity being driven in the same category of work and the same skill set. And concepts of fair pay will step in very, very strongly, specifically because you will find in the listed companies a lot of public activism and shareholder activism happening, saying that what's your tooth to tail ratio? Do you pay your female employees same as your male employees? Do you pay more than your minimum wage? Do you pay a living wage? And stuff like that. So I think that's what will happen. And as somebody said, customers and peers will more and more decide recognition than your boss. So you should work for your peers and you will work for your customers and not for your boss. So those are my 9 predictions. They are my personal favorites, not a Vodafone philosophy or stand, but I think that's where the world is going. Thank you.